you're enjoying the journey so far. In this lesson, we'll cover the text sequence type. Truth to be told, we've already used strings in previous examples, but now we'll dive a bit deeper. Textual data in Python is represented with strings, or shortly abbreviated to the str type. Strings are immutable and also belong to the sequence family. Remember how in the last lesson we covered the common sequence operations? You can use the same type of operations with strings, so keep that in mind. When it comes to how you write them, you can use single or double quotes. That is up to you. Just commit to one and keep it consistent across your projects. Otherwise, you'll end up looking like someone with a personality disorder. You can also use triple quotes when you go for overly dramatic storytelling, as they allow for multi-line strings. In practice, you tend to use triple quotes for docstrings, which commonly describes the behavior of a function, for example. I don't think I've showed how to create a function before, so let's do it. Essentially, we use the keyword def, which stands for definition. Here I use the triple quotes for the docstring of my function, which partially prints the lyrics of my favorite song. If you notice, the instructions within the function are moved slightly to the right. We call this spacing indentation. Indentation is Python's way of grouping elements that will run within the same flow. All the examples that we've covered so far only contain a single flow, but that will change as we go further into the chapter. For now, what I wanted to say is that typically an indented group will have 4 white spaces, which you can automatically generate by pressing the tab key. Before calling my newly created function, I want to highlight that to check its docstring or documentation, we can press Shift plus Tab, which allows us to see what the function does. Of course, this is only possible if you create docstrings in the first place. This is extremely useful, especially now that we are at a point in which we've covered plenty of built-in functions. I've previously shared the official documentation for some of them, but now you can also see them directly in the notebook. Okay, enough with docstring, let's print the best song of all time. Python provides a host of built-in methods to manipulate strings, which go beyond the common operations we previously covered. I won't name them all, but I still want to cover a few, just so you have awareness they exist. Let's start with the join function. Imagine you want to chain a list of events that lead you to not studying these lessons properly, so your excuses appear to have more substance. In this case, we can build a list of excuses, which even myself would perfectly empathize with. Let's also create a connector to chain all the excuses together. Know that to join, we need a string that will join in between all the elements in our list. In this case, our connector. It can be anything as long as it's a string. Now we can wrap up everything in the print function by doing the introspective work of asking yourself why you didn't study, followed by the very understandable reasoning. In the end, you can read why didn't I study? Because I was watching Twilight and as expected, got an emotional crisis and as expected, needed a couple of days off to recover. Lovely. Other 2 functions to keep in mind is the starts with and its counterpart ends with, which return true or false. If you probably guessed it, the string you are evaluating either starts or ends with the substring you evaluated it against. For example, if I want to ask Python if every misunderstanding of mine starts with miss, Python will say that it's true. Another function that you might use is the function contains, which acts similarly to the previous 2 functions, but will search everywhere within the string. Another family of functions that may be of use to you in the future, especially if you need to clean some data up, are the strip functions. And no, they don't come from Las Vegas. Strip removes any characters that you specify at both start and end of a string. By default, if you don't set any parameters in any of the strip functions, they will default to a white space. Note that I don't need to set multiple dot characters. One is enough to remove all the dots that are placed together at both ends of the string. The other 2 functions of the family are the else strip and the rstrip, which will either remove the characters to the left or to the right. Continuing on the cleaning process, you will often need to replace sections on the string. For this, you can simply use the replace function. Alright, we're just about to finish. I also want to mention the split function. Split will return a list in which each element is a section of the original string that was split based on the selected expression. In this case, if I use the ampersand character for the split, you can see that I will get a list in which the first element is Bella and the second element is Edward. By default, there are no limit of splits that can be done to the string being split, but you can use the max split parameter if you ever want to set the maximum number for your use case. Lastly, I wanted to cover the F strings, which can be useful when you need to embed variables or expressions inside a string in a clean and readable way. We saw that the previous example of embedding the student reasoning into the print statement, but in this case the variable was a single concatenated string. Let's say that you had two variables this time, a name and an age. If you wanted to print both in a single sentence, you'd most likely use something like an old string formatting if you were considering how you wanted to present the values. Here, %s converts the object to a string and %d converts into a decimal. Or you would use some type of string concatenation like in second option. You can see that it's a concatenation due to the multiple plus signs. However, there is a cleaner and better way to build these strings up, which is by using the F strings. They allow to embed multiple variables in a single expression, and you can even set formatting if it's something you need. In the first expression, I just set the values directly in the expression, and in the second, I set the number of decimal cases. Both are valid. It really comes down to your use case. Alright, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson on the text data types.